Salutations, my fiendish film fanatics. I am the Silver Screen Slasher, and welcome back to Mad May. Apologies for the delay. I had to go on a mental retreat, so to speak. But now I'm back, and better than ever. And with me today are my good friends, George, aka Spike Greene, and Cinemastein. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello, does this Jason mask look vaguely like Lord Humongous?
Greetings from the Among Us, the Lord Humongous,
Well, it's
the
not. Well,
warrior of the
honestly,
wasteland, the
I
intruder,
compared Lord Humongous'
Arachnaduda.
mask as the same one used in the poster for Friday 5. But and since I'm continuing on Mad May in a bit of a rush, today we're going to be looking at Mad Max 2, aka The Road Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
Released in 1981, and it's known here. This film is known here in Australia as Mad Max 2, but is known in the US as The Road Warrior. But was later release of the film just clumped the two titles together as Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior.
And the reason why they just called it Road Warrior back in America is because no one really knew that that there was a previous film, of course, called Mad Max. Like they didn't know about the original.
That's true. Yes, Spike?
Yeah, I was going to say a similar thing. If you have the Blu-ray of Road Warrior, Leonard Maltin has an introduction where he says something about that, and he says, not many people, there are some people who did know Mad Max, but not many people went to see it at all in America. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's why they only called it The Road Warrior, because Mad Max wouldn't really sell.
Yeah,
I just to let you know, of course, one quick thing I just want to say as well. Before Fury Road even came out or was a thing, right? Like at all. Anyway, so this was at a time, of course, before Fury Road even came out, right?
Yeah.
But back when there was only 3 movies, people considered this one to be the absolute best of the series, or trilogy, I should say, because the first one still good, low budget action film, but of course wasn't amazing. Beyond Thunderdome, I actually heard some people hated it, some people just thought it was okay, but when it came to number two, people loved Road Warrior.
Yeah, and honestly,
and yes, this is my edition of the film as well.
And here's mine. Notice the age difference, and notice the difference in notice the difference in what years these came out. Now, Cinemastein is the more modern release of the film, whereas mine is a more old school one. Hence why mine's called Mad Max 2, and his is known as Mad Max: The Road Warrior.
And
thing is, what I want to say about the rating, at least for my DVD edition, for the first Mad Max, it's not that violent, so I don't think it deserves an R rating. But this one, maybe for example, maybe somewhere sort of similar like that. Maybe MA, MA is more, at least for the violence of this film. So what I'm trying to say is, I think up to this point, Road Warrior is the more violent point, at least up to this moment in the series.
It used to be rated R way back before MA even existed. Like MA didn't exist until 1993, so it used to be rated R and then M and then, because you couldn't exactly pick an MA at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's like the same way that Predator 2 was. That some DVD copies of Predator 2 were R rated. I'm not even joking. That's a thing. But let's think about it this way. Road Warrior came out in 1981, at least 2 years after the original Mad Max came out, and obviously, Mad Max had grown quite a popularity in Australia. So people were excited to see what a sequel would do. So let's restart our engines and take a look at Mad Max 2.
May I explain the plot, because I've even got it at the back of my DVD here.
Yes, from here on in, spoiler alert. If you've not seen Mad Max 2, spoiler alert.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Cinemastein, you have the floor.
Yeah. Alright, hold on a minute. Max is the heroic loner who drives the roads of the outback in Australia in an undenying search for gasoline arrayed against him and the other scraggy defenders of the fuel depot. Excomment.
Very much.
Are the bizarre warriors commanded by the humongous, notorious for never taking prisoners when they can pursue them instead. Sorry, the plot for this one, I'll admit, is a bit hard to explain.
Like very much like the first movie, it's very stripped down. But this one to me feels a bit more like Akira Kurosawa's work. That like I've seen a couple of his films, The Hidden Fortress and High and Low, and I think this may remind me a tiny bit more of The Hidden Fortress, really, because of
I changed my mind. The way I explained it, that the plot, honestly, I'm actually now just hate. Like, it's absolute shit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll let one of you do it instead. So,
basically,
fuck what I just said. Don't even fucking worry about that.
That's fine.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, I think I can translate what you were saying, Stein. Basically, yeah, I believe this movie takes place at least maybe a couple years after the events of the first Mad Max film. Following a global war and the collapse of civilization, and after oil supplies have been nearly exhausted, the world is now in a state of barbarism. And that means shit just hit the fan.
Mm-hmm.
And being haunted by the death of his family, former policeman Max Rockatansky, once again played by Mel Gibson, is now roaming the desert wilderness of a post-apocalyptic Australia. It is scarred black, supercharged V8 Pursuit Special, the signature car of the Mad Max series.
Oh, I almost must mention literally the very first thing we see in this movie is the thing that you would see in every 50s monster movie: stock footage of nuclear shit.
And they tell part of the backstory, all the backstory. Really, you don't even need to see the first one. You hear about Max, you see black and white pan scan footage of the first, and you see the stock footage, and they say, "Oh, this is how the world sort of crumbled," and they're showing the financiers and stuff. It's a good use of the montage there, and that's before it just cuts to black, cuts to widescreen, usually the color. But if you turn down the color like I did, which I should say that because George Miller saw a black and white version during sound editing, and he preferred that version. But then Warner Brothers would want him to release a color version, so he wanted to eventually release a black and white Mad Max film, which he eventually did in a version of Mad Max Fury Road because of that.
Which we'll get to later.
Yeah, I watched it in black and white for the purposes of this review and found it to remind me a lot more of, say, some Kurosawa than anything else.
Of course, this does bring me into a very interesting topic, which I would like to discuss it as before we get into Thunderdome and Fury Road. Basically, the first film is called Mad Max, and Max in the first movie doesn't seem all that mad. Perhaps maybe the other films just take place in his head.
Oh,
that's actually what I heard in a fan theory that the other two films may have went after the death of his family. He just kind of went insane, and maybe all the other films just happened in his head.
It is an interesting fan theory that has been tossed around for quite a couple of decades.
Sometimes George Miller, I think at least on one occasion, he said that each different installment is like a different interpretation of Max, like a different interpretation of the story almost in some way. I don't know. Like as if Max is more of a legend than a person in some ways.
I guess. And surprisingly, Max does at least have a companion on his trip at the moment, an Australian cattle dog.
Mm.
And after fending off a biker gang, including their leader Wes, he eventually comes across an abandoned Gyro Captain and attempts to collect its fuel, but he gets into a bit of a scuffle with the pilot.
Mm.
Speaking of, I actually have a bit of a fact for the actor who played the pilot. Before, I believe, when this film was being made, right, the guy literally just recently came out of hospital.
Oh.
That's right. For film franchises who films some of the most dangerous stunts ever, right? And guess what? Imagine that, hiring an actor, and then a few moments later, he just has to he comes back from hospital.
Yeah.
So
this character is only
dude, are you crazy?
Well, obviously, if he's going to be in this movie, he's got to have some pretty crazy balls.
Mm.
Anyway, this character is only known as the Gyro Captain and is played by Bruce Spence, and who eventually he sort of becomes an ally for Max, showing him into an oil refinery. But either the pilot discovered. Of course, eventually they discovered. Of course, when they arrive there, they find that the compound is under siege by an apocalyptic gang known as the Marauders, which the previously mentioned Wes was a member of. And eventually, it's here we're not them introduced to the leader, a humongous hulk of a beast. He's known only as Humongous. And this is the main bad guy for the movie. Seriously, this guy is seriously goddamn terrifying.
Yeah, by the way, I learned that members of his gang or whatever, right? I believe are a bit of a mixture of like gone rogue cops like Max himself, and also a bit of like punk rockers or whatever.
The Humongous himself is.
I almost forgot. Probably one of the most important things about this film ever is it is the official Mad Max film that gave it its all iconic style with the cool, rusty, made up pretty much weirdly designed looking cars, and even was responsible for the one giving all the characters weird and interesting costumes.
The original Mad Max may have given the spark of the idea, but Road Warrior was a film that ignited the fire of its whole world.
Oh, by the way, I just want to do this even just real quickly. I'm gravely disappointed. Again, you made me unleash my torch of war.
Anyway, the Humongous is played by Kjell Nilsson in just an amazing role. He's according to Wikipedia, the character is described as the violent yet charismatic and articulate leader of a, quote, vicious gang of post-Holocaust motorcycle ride vandals who loot, rape, and kill the few remaining wasteland dwellers. End quote. It's only described like that in the movie, but it's never explicitly shown. Thank goodness.
Yep. Oh, another interesting fact for the film, you would not believe this. Back when George Miller was literally like first filming this thing, he didn't even have a script for this thing. I heard, not even a script. That's right. He literally thought of the entire story as he was filming the movie. Like as he was filming it, he just thought of it along the way. I know, and that's even especially amazing for a guy who didn't even have a script. Because what's also so amazing about it is, well, it came out very successful, and even better than the first and the third movie at that time.
Yeah.
Which is just insane, especially for a director who didn't even have a script for it.
You know, this does bring up my own little theory. You sure that George Miller isn't Mad Max?
What?
The way he came with that whole story in his head. You sure he's not mad?
I'm pretty sure he's all right. I mean, actually, with George Miller, did you know that his official title's not even Mr.? It's actually Dr. George Miller.
Huh. I did not know that. That does beg the question. What exactly is George Miller a doctor of?
Oh, I forget right now. I don't want to say anything in case it's false. But I do know that he is Dr. George Miller, though. Yeah.
I feel like at this point I should mention at least a few other characters that will be important later on in the film, which would include Wes, played by Vernon Wells, as well as the Toady, played by Max Phipps. Basically each and every side character in the movie is interesting in their own unique way. And honestly, it would be impossible to list all of them at the moment.
Speaking of, I actually want to get on to characters. First off is Max himself, of course, as Silvers just said, played by Mel Gibson once again. What's so interesting about Max even in this film, and what makes him even a little more interesting in this one? You know what I like that George Miller did? I learned he barely even has any lines in the film, so most of the time he doesn't even talk. He just expresses his face and his feelings and all that through his expressions, like through his face. and and
Yeah.
still, even just by watching it, you can sometimes even tell how he's feeling and what he's thinking or what he's even thinking of doing.
This and honestly, I would
Just to
compare.
give you an idea as well, how many lines he has in the film, only 16 lines.
Damn.
Yeah, not many.
Well, for the
And that was
for the
kind of
most
easy
part,
for Mel Gibson, if you think about it. Not that many lines, so.
I guess. But I would, for the most part, I would actually compare Mel Gibson's acting in Road Warrior to another actor is portrayal of a character in a more modern movie. Basically, think of him as think of Mel Gibson in Road Warrior as the old school version of Nicolas Cage in Willy's Wonderland.
Mm-hmm.
And,
another character that I find interesting as well, and who actually, in fact, has zero dialogue, even unlike Max, is that little wild kid, as I call him, just the wild kid, because he just looks so wild.
Oh, but, that would be the Pharaoh Kid, played by Emil Minty.
Yep. Still, but especially when he lacks dialogue, right? But still, what
Not
I'm trying to say is, it doesn't matter because you can even just tell how he's feeling. Like when Max at one point has this little music box or whatever that he's playing right in front of him, and when you see the little kid's face, you can tell that he's feeling happy or excited or whatever. It's just so well done.
Well, technically, he doesn't. He doesn't not have any dialogue. The Pharaoh Kid only speaks in growls and grunts, sort of like a wild animal.
Yeah. And that's what they call him in the movie, the Feral Kid.
And honestly, I think he's actually a pretty interesting character. Basically, with a connection between him and Mad Max, the Feral Kid is sort of like a new just a replacement version of the kid he lost.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. Wow. Huh.
Yeah. Basically, his only son was run down at a very young age. So bonding with the Feral Kid sort of brings back memories in a sort of good way for him.
I just actually had a bit of an idea on what honestly George Miller could have maybe done for the film. I know, just to make even Max a little more happier in his life. I'm not sure about you, but if I was Max, I would even maybe think about even adopting that little feral kid.
That would have actually been a good plot point.
And then I thought, well, I know he may not have a wife, but at least he has a kind of a son again.
Indeed.
Because I'm not sure about you, if I was Max, I'd like, for the first time in so long, I actually have, someone in my life that I care about again. A son.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the way Max has less dialogue, that was I think it's Ryan Gosling in Drive, or even especially Ryan Gosling in Only God Forgives. It's sort of like that, in the very little dialogue and stuff, and very much the silent hero, very much in fact, Sergio Leone's films, the Dollars trilogy, that doesn't have too much dialogue, does it? In some places.
No, actually, I heard at times it doesn't even have dialogue as well. So you are right about that, Spike.
Yeah, or like I previously mentioned, Nicolas Cage's character in Willy's Wonderland, simply known as the janitor, has barely any dialogue.
Yeah.
I still actually haven't seen that movie. That just recently came out on Blu-ray, by the way, you guys. So at least at this very moment in 2021.
As did Zack Snyder's version of Justice League, which is now available on Blu-ray, 4K, and DVD, and which we will eventually do a review of. So don't get your knickers in it, folks.
I'll be getting it in 4K next Saturday.
I'm getting it on Blu-ray. What about you, Stein?
Well, it's on Plex, so I might watch it on Plex.
Don't blame me when the resolution goes all crappy on you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
we're getting a bit off topic. Back to the review.
Yeah, let's get back to the plot. Eventually, Max is biding his time and trying and just find an opening to just attack the humongous his group. Eventually, he manages to rescue a single survivor of one group and strikes a deal to return to the complex in exchange for fuel. Unfortunately, the man dies from his wounds after Max takes him back, and the settlers' leader, Papagallo, goes back on the deal. They're on the verge of killing Max when the Marauders return, and although Wes wants to kill all the settlers after his partner was taken down by a metal boomerang thrown by the Pharaoh Kid, Humongous offers the settlers safe passage in exchange for the fuel supply, which I'm not even sure actually exists. They might just be exchanging nothing but water and dirt.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the main currency. You know what? I thought of an interesting thread of Mad Max 2. The fact that well, money doesn't really seem to exist anymore. Money is petrol now. So yeah, they're exchanging petrol.
Yeah, basically in the world of Mad Max, money can be basically anything now. Currency, and in the world of Mad Max, physical cash, it won't work. In this world, it's water and gasoline, or as they call it on Fury Road, gasoline.
Yeah, so my card would definitely be declined.
Yeah, or it would just be illegal.
Oh yeah.
Eventually, Max strikes up another alternate deal with Gallo, procuring a vehicle to haul the settler's tank if they return his car and give him as much fuel as he can carry. They accept, but keep his car as leverage until he gets back. Of course, eventually, Max encounters the Gyro Captain again and forces him to carry the fuel to the truck, which is a Max semi, which Max discovered after his first encounter with Wes. With some aerial support from the captain, and he drives the semi through the Marauders encampment into the compound. And although the settlers want Max to go, want him to take them north, Max and his officer just get the fueling car and leave. Just like the total lone wolf he is. However, while attempting to get through the siege, he gets majorly injured when his car gets wrecked after being run off road by a Wes. As in Lord Humongous is nitro equipped vehicle, and unfortunately, he one of Humongous's toadies goes all John Wick and kills Max's dog.
Yeah, speaking of course, for people, I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but I've said this a few times. Spike Greene does not like seeing animals get killed on screen, even if it's not real. He still doesn't really like seeing it. So yes, warning, if you're a big animal lover and you're also possibly like action films like Mad Max, please be aware that yes, well, there is pretty much doggy killing. But
yeah,
anyway,
and unfortunately,
the good news is I wouldn't say they kill him in a really brutal way. It's just like a quick, like.
Yeah,
you just hear him get killed, but you don't see him get killed.
Up down with a crossbow. Oh,
mm.
Oh, and eventually, of course, karma comes to bite them in the ass. When the tanks just self-destruct, and both Wes and both the Marauder that killed Max's dog and Toady are killed in the explosion. Max is left for dead, but the Gyro Captain manages to rescue him and get him back to the compound. Despite the injuries he's acquired, he insists on just running away with his tail tucked between his legs. However, and now we come to what is considered to be the most interesting part of the movie, the chase scene.
Even the climax, I believe, the last few minutes of the movie.
Yeah, basically, it's one big chase scene.
The chase is
actually just one interesting I want to actually just say as well. But some people have even gone to say that now Fury Road or Road Warrior, or at least people are saying that Fury Road is pretty much a remake of Mad Max 2, but bigger and better looking, which is kind of sad in a way because still I will admit I like Mad Max 2, but I guess I do see where fans are coming from in a way.
When we get down to when we eventually drive into the Fury Road, I'll give my opinion on what I essentially think my interpretation of Fury Road is. But for this movie, I consider it mostly action and character building in the first two acts, whereas the third act of the film is one big chase scene in between Max and the settlers and Lord Humongous and the Marauders. And honestly, it's a pretty good chase scene in which which I can't describe everything, and since there's too much action at once. Eventually, though, Pappagallo and the defenders are killed during the chase, and the Gyro Captain gets shot down, leaving Max and the Pharaoh Kid alone against the Mirage as Wes boards the fuel truck to kill the two of them. However, the semi eventually gets into a head-on collision with Humongous' car, killing both Wes and Lord Humongous as the truck rolls off the road with while the rest of the Marauders just run away like bitches.
Speaking of the way Humongous and the way they shot his death scene and everything, whoa, what an impact of smashing into the car. Like, what a, honestly, kind of a cool and brutal looking way to kill a villain.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of, I feel like the action in this film is, to me, obviously, since it's a sequel, it's bigger, it's better, it's, no offense, but honestly, I think Mad Max 2 up to this point is, well, better than the first one. Don't get me wrong, the first film is still a great low-budget action film, but the second film, I'm sorry, but this one, we gotta agree, it's honestly still a little better.
I do agree with you on. I do agree. And now let's get. Of course, there are at least the last few minutes of the movie we should point out. For one point, as Max still injured, it carries the Pharaoh Kid from the wrecked tanker. He sees that it was full of sand and not oil, which means the trucker he is driving was a decoy. So the rest of the settlers could actually get away with the oil drums hidden in their vehicles. With Pappagallo dead, and the Gyro Captain, who, don't worry, is still alive, succeeds him as their chief and leads the settlers to the coast, which they establish as the Great Northern Tribe. Many years pass by, and the Pharaoh Kid, now an adult ultimate Northern Tribe's new leader, is revealed to be the one who actually introduced us to the start of the movie, and now reminisces about the legendary Road Warrior, who left for parts unknown, and now only lives on as a story. And that is Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. I gotta admit, it's actually a little bit, to me, it's just a little bit better than the first movie, but not by much.
As I said, yep, pretty much the same as Silver, but as I just said, don't get me wrong, the first film is a good low-budget film, action film. It's still great. I still love it to that day, but Mad Max 2 Road Warrior, I gotta say, yeah, it's just a little better than the first one. Just a little bit. My rating for this one, I actually might give it maybe a 9 out of 10.
I'm kind of on the opposite end of yours. As when it comes, I've heard other people's opinions on the Mad Max films in general, and they say, and I asked, and mainly when I asked them to rank the Mad Max films, I'd say I basically describe, I gave them an easier way to rank them, from the ones they watched the least times to the most times, and surprisingly, they would put Road Warrior. Thanks to Fury Road, they probably put Road Warrior at the bottom now. I'm on the list now. But honestly, I just think it's an okay movie, in my opinion. So
I might change that rating real quickly, and I might at least give it an 8.
Same as me. I'm going to give the film 8 out of 10 stars. Spike, final thoughts?
Well, I'll give it a 7. I mean, fair enough. You guys have it 8, but for a moment there, it was like 9, 8, 7.
Well, I'm not. Well, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to bum anyone out, but I just think Road Warrior is an okay movie.
Me too.
Yeah, it's a good movie, but I feel like it does have, maybe because I wasn't used to the pacing of it. I do feel like it does have a few problems in terms of pacing, not nearly as much as some other things, but
I feel like it drags at times.
Yeah. But it's a good movie overall, though.
That's fine. I respect that.
Agreed. We're halfway down, and honestly, I don't really. Honestly, when it comes to reviewing the next movie, Spike. I'm pretty sure Saturday Night can handle this one, if that's okay with you.
That's okay.
Besides, we don't need another hero.
You only need the way home.
Exactly. Next time, join me in Cinemastein when we take a look at the third installation and my personal favorite of the series, as we go beyond Thunderdome. Until then, see you soon.
Yeah.
Good night.